this is what bothered me. Guys, I'm laughing at it. Super core. I didn't even know there was a thing like super core. Like, are we seeing like Superman flying with a cape behind him? Well, US CPI came in hot again. And is there some surprises in that report? Well, yes, there is, but we're going to keep it general today and talk about how is this going to affect everybody's favorite topic, which is stocks and real estate. And we're going to be diving into that story today. Now, this is the US indexes that is going to be released that did come out. But why we always look to this, remember, is always because the US has the privileged position of being in the reserve currency. So what they do kind of trickles down to the rest of the countries of the West, including Canada. So we like to keep our eye on that because it is the king dollar that is out there. Let's jump straight away into the article today. CNBC, it shows that inflation rose 0.5% in January, more than expected, and up 6.4% from a year ago. Inflation rose in January by 0.5%, following a 0.1% increase in December. Remember, in December, they thought originally it was going to be deflation, and then they revalued that number to be higher. If we look at the December numbers, now it is 0.1, and the consumer price index was released yesterday. It was up 6.4% from the same time last year. Now, if we were going to try to piece this apart, this is the thing. We've seen interest rates go up 4% or greater in most countries. So 4% up only dropped the inflation numbers by 3%. So think of if they have to get it now from 6% all the way down to 2%, imagine what they would have to do to bring that down that much quickly. If they had to do it quickly, they would have to raise interest rates to 10, 11, 12%. Don't be afraid. They're not going to do that. That would absolutely cripple the economy. But there's something called the lag effect. And though there are a lot of fancy terms into it, just know that when they raise the interest rates, the real effect takes 12 to 18 months to show up. Remember, we're only 10 months in or so into the rate hiking season. So we haven't seen the effects. And this is what they keep talking about at the Bank of Canada and the Bank of the US, saying we have to wait and see what happens. What it means is imagine that your payment on your home went up $1,000. I guarantee you, if we went and talked to everybody before the whole shutdowns and the pandemic and everything, before that, and if you went and randomly asked people, hey, do you have $1,000 left over every single month for like no reason? Not one person would agree with you and say yes. So everybody has a different level of savings. So some people only have 3 months of payments. That's $3,000 in savings. Some people might have 6. Some people might have 9, but generally in 12 to 18 months, we're going to see that show up in the market. So we're only halfway through that cycle right now. So when they say that they have raised those rates up 4% so far, and we've only seen inflation come down slightly, well, that is not a very encouraging thing, but we have to wait and see, which is what the Bank of Canada is coming. Here it says across the board are increases in shelter, food, and energy. Of course, we know that. Remember, this is the tip that I always try and tell everybody is the prices of things that you need, underline, highlight, things you need go up in price, and the things you want go down. Everybody needs food, regardless. It doesn't matter if the economy is up or down, we still need to eat. Okay, but if the economy is up or down, does determine if you're going to buy a new car, does determine if you're going to buy new blankets for your bed. I don't know, anything. There's a difference between need and want. And there's certain things that just, no matter what the price is, we still have to buy toilet paper or whatever it is, right? So the things that we need go up. Please remember that. And this is what bothered me. Guys, I'm laughing at it. Super core. I didn't even know there was a thing like super core. Like, are we seeing like Superman flying with a cape behind him? What is super core? And notice what it is the Fed excludes food, energy, and shelter. And so they're like, well, that looks a little bit better. Only 4% higher than last year. So please show me the people who do not need shelter and do not use any energy, no electricity, no gas for the car, and don't eat. Well, if you are an alien race that does not need a house, energy, or food, you are the type of people we want to talk to. So I find that funny. So, you guys, let's check out this chart. Year over year through January 2023, we can see that inflation did drop at the very, very beginning of the shutdown, right? And obviously, as people needed more and more stuff, they were buying. If we look at the lower part, less food and energy, of course, less food and energy, it would be lower. But notice if we scroll down in the article, it says energy is also a significant contributor. And notice I always bring this up because in Canada, they note that as well at the central banks. The US notes this on a regular basis, that energy. Now, for Canada, it's even more important for them because we are not energy independent. Now, the US could be energy independent if their policies changed, but we don't try to get into politics, but they have more control out of their oil than Canada does. And so when Canada especially mentions, well, it's dependent on oil, well, the OPEC nations, so Saudi Arabia and other countries, are going to decide what the oil price is and drop the price of oil from 120 a barrel down to 75. If they did that and it helped our inflation, that had nothing to do with you. So don't pat yourselves on the back too much, right? These local countries that say, well, energy was the reason. So we have to have more policies to make sure that we're not going to be in trouble, because the US draining their strategic reserve to keep prices down, that's just it. It's a reserve. It runs out. And now it's mostly empty. So they got to be able to fill this thing up for when something really dodgy happens, not just political points, let's call it. Now, here is something I want you to look at the 3-month treasury. So this is if you give money to the government to save you money in the long term, like I want some interest. So if I put my money into the bank and I get 0.25% interest, that sucks. But if I want to give them some money, I want to know what these numbers are. This is the 10-year treasury minus the 3-month. So that is the 3-month treasury and the 10-year treasury. So if I wanted to give the money to the government and loan them money, okay, and they're going to give it back to me, I'm going to make 4.819%, 4.8, almost 5% to lend them money. 3-month treasuries. This is a very short window. But look at what happens when I go to a 10-year window. 3.8. Notice 4.8 for a 3-month treasury, 3.8 for a 10-year. And you guys are going, hang on. I know you guys are savvy. This is ridiculous. If I lend you money for a short amount of time, I should be getting a smaller amount of interest. If I'm willing to lend you money for a very long time, I should get a lot more money for this. I mean, it only makes sense, right? And that's how it's supposed to be. That's a healthy market. But think of the bond market and the treasury market like smart money. This is where institutions and hedge funds and commercial banks and all these guys, they're doing all their research with hundreds of people that are analysts, sometimes thousands, behind the curtains, like the Wizard of Oz back there. They're doing a lot of work and strategizing. So when we take a look at this chart right here, this is the 10-year minus the 3-month treasury. Please remember that the 3-month was 4.8 and the 10-year was 3.8. Okay, so if we go back here, now this is going way back, and you can go check out these Fed terms. But when you get more money in the short term, which goes against like nature, okay, when that happens, for example, right here, 1989, the commercial banks and everybody involved, hedge funds, everything, all the smart money, they're sniffing out a big problem. So what is that problem? They are thinking that the economy is going to have a massive heart attack, and that's like a bloodhound sniffing around, sniffing out BS. There's something dodgy coming down that hole, man. It's going to happen. And so look at what happens here at the end of 89. Then all of a sudden, this gray zone here is a recession. I see that right here. It almost hit it in 82, but they were just into a recession right there. So this recession in the 90s, it sniffed it out. A couple months later, bam, we went into a recession. In 2000, notice how the bond market here and the treasuries, it sniffed out the problem again, our bloodhound. And then wham, it got nailed. Then it pulled it. It knew right here as well. Another big problem is happening. Big recession. Everyone remembers the great financial crisis, the last problem that we had. If we move forward until 2019, I'm like wondering, how did they know that another recession was coming? I don't know, but it did invert briefly just when we had the initial shutdown. But look at where we have been now since October. It has absolutely plummeted. And now the difference is like the greatest on record here. I can't go back farther than this, but it's the greatest it has been. So if you notice that the smart money is already sniffing out the problems in the market. And so how can that help you? I want this to inspire you to be curious and ask questions and dig into a little bit of the information yourself. And I'm trying to show you what I keep looking at. If we take a look at this website, ShadowStats, what it does is it shows the way they used to calculate inflation. So you can go back in time and see that they used to measure inflation like this way in the 90s. They also used to measure inflation this way in the 80s. So do you notice how it diverges and there's two different lines? So the principle of the CPI, the way that it's supposed to be, is imagine you were coming out with a cart full of groceries and it was like 1980, okay? And I had one ham in it and 1 gallon of milk and I had a loaf of bread in it and a dozen eggs, okay? And then fast forward to today, and I came out with the exact same ham, eggs, and milk, and exactly the same, okay? They want to know what is the price difference between the two, okay? That would be a fair CPI because we're using the exact same item. The only difference is the difference of the years. And we just want to know how many dollars they've printed. So we get an accurate CPI. The problem with this is how they change the way they calculate things all the time. One thing that I learned from my wife, who is an epidemiologist, is that she is also asking, how does that calculation come to that? The answer is not the answer for you. The answer is only valuable if you know the question that was asked, kind of like a Jeopardy. You got to know the question. So, how did you come to that? Just to say something like, oh, this kind of coffee is the best, or this kind of medical treatment is the best. Well, how did you measure that? And so this is what has changed in the 80s and the 90s. They changed weightings in it. It's kind of mixed up business. So if we're going to use the exact same way that they measure things in the 80s as they did today, the problem would be a lot worse. But we do it usually for some kind of political gain or whatever, who's ever's in party, wherever they are. But let's take a look at this one. If we were going to use it the way they did in the 80s, we can see that today inflation would be like 14%, something like that. But what they're reporting is like 6%. So you guys have to look at this and that difference. So although they report one number, if we use their own exact calculations that they used, we would be much, much higher. This is where I encourage you to dig into that information a lot more, because we can see over time that money supply is increasing at an astronomical rate. So if you hear that CPI is only 6%, I want you to ask, how did you get that number? Because most people who are walking around will go, well, my groceries cost more than 6%, of course. Fuel is up more than 6%. Housing is up more than 6%. Some areas is 20%. So if all of this stuff is up way more than 6, how do you believe that number 6 when it comes out? And this is why I want you to do a little bit more digging. If you dig a little bit more, you're going to see a lot higher inflation rate. And that's our target. We need to beat that type of inflation. That's what I want for you guys. So the CPI was a big shock that it was going up, but there's a lot of cross currents that is happening in this market. So we have to pay attention to the different things that are happening. Everyone was talking about eggs going up like crazy, but yes, we asked the question, why were eggs up 60%? There was an avian flu and they had to cull millions of birds. It takes time for those birds that are remaining and healthy to have babies, for them to grow until time that they can have eggs as well. And so we're seeing that now. So we're seeing egg prices come down. So the free market usually stabilizes those prices, but we have to make sure our supply chains are always active, and that's what's been disrupted. So when it comes to stocks and to housing, we are seeing that the market, the danger is coming. As we saw in that 3-month and 10-year, it has inverted for a while now, and it's sniffing out massive, massive problems that are coming down the road. We need to be careful, because if you have equity or you have money or something somewhere, you are in danger of losing some of it. But what would happen if you lost some more? So where I am in Toronto, Canada, we expect houses to drop another 15%, even though as of today, they're down 29.7%. Huge numbers. So what are you going to do about that? Maybe you're okay right now, which is great. If you own your home, you're one of 35% of people that own your home. This is wonderful. Then it doesn't matter. It's not going to shake you up too much. But what happens if you're waiting for that money for retirement? Here's the thing. Focus on what you're good at. Focus on increasing your skill set. Focus on researching, doing more, becoming better. That's what we want for everybody. We want you to be okay. The things that you need are going to continue to go up in price. The things that you want are going to come down. So now is not the time to be considering, in my opinion, to be buying a cottage or a motorcycle or a boat or fun things, a lot of expensive clothes. You should have this reserve ready so that when things go on massive discounts, you are there ready to take it. Remember, Warren Buffett said that if it's raining gold, you want to run outside with a bucket. You need to pick it up. So when there are deals out there, you need to have the money to be able to go and buy them. So hopefully you're going to be able to pick up a couple of extra houses, more stocks that you like, whatever that you think is going to be good investments for your family moving forward. So I want the best for you guys. I want you to keep on crushing it. Keep on being curious, keep on learning. And I hope that I keep on learning. I keep telling everyone the next 2 years of your life is going to dictate the next 2 decades. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much for coming by. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.